Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Blessings Podcast. And today I am so pleased to have with me Renee V. Renee is a power educator. She works with students to enhance their communication skills and nurture things like confidence, self-esteem, and personal agency. These days, she is helping kids and their parents to become superheroes to create momentum around enhancing mindset in children and adults. She knows that self-development is the way to human thriving at any age, and it's the inner work that makes the inner workings run like a well-oiled machine. She's vivacious and has a smile for miles. I can't wait to dig into her story with her. And here is the beautiful Renee.
Oh, thank you for that. That was amazing.
Good. Got to start out on a high.
Yeah, I love it.
Why don't you go ahead and tell us from the beginning, where were you born and what was your early life like?
So I was born in Pennsylvania in a place called Norristown. It was a hospital there that no longer exists. My parents came from New York and settled here. And I say here because I live in Pennsylvania now again, which is a story for later. I have a sister, an older sister, and she and I hated and loved each other again growing up. I had a pretty amazing childhood in the sense where there was no like true trauma or anything that happened to me as a kid that would really stand out. But I always remember feeling different in the sense of I was a little bit of rebellious with my family. If the three of them were going this way, I always felt like I wanted to go this way. And I never really understood why. Because when you're growing up, especially in the 80s, you don't know anything else but your family. You follow what your family's saying, you do what you're told to do, and you go to church. You do all these things that don't necessarily vibe with you, but you do it because that's the path you're following because that's your family. But it always stuck out in the back of my mind about the person I was and my individuality in this family. And my sister went away to college, and that's when we started getting along. And she went to school to be a guidance counselor. And I think she, in a sense, was always my counselor in my older years. She still is. But before that, we didn't really connect. I didn't tell her my deepest, darkest secrets or anything like that.
How much older is she? Is she a lot older?
She's 3 years older.
Okay.
And she and I, as alike as we were, very different. So I didn't necessarily feel comfortable telling her things about my private life in my teenage years. She just presented as like another mom to me. And my family have that open communication about what we're going through. It just wasn't a thing. And no one's fault. That's the way it was. And so for me, her going away to college was pretty much like the catalyst to our friendship growing because she was away. And then I, in turn, ended up going to school with her.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Do you have any stories about your relationship as little girls that might illustrate your relationship?
There is like a crazy memory that I have of my sister and I in her room. And I don't even understand where this all came from, but we used to listen to the Beatles song Yesterday and pretend we were at a funeral. And I remember her putting a flag on me and we would be like, it just was so strange. But it's one of the things that stands out in my mind as a childhood memory with her. And I don't know what to make of it. I don't know why we were doing that. But I do remember listening to music with her. My dad he would always put on his music and we would dance and we would sing and dance like to Whitney Houston and things like that. We got along very well. I'm not sure if the age difference was a good thing or a not so good thing with our relationship, because maybe she was just far out of the league for me as a kid. She was in a different mind space at that time and had different interests than me. We always had a love for each other, but I would say we became best friends as we got older.
Oh, that's nice. You are the baby of the family. Is there anything from your family that you think characterizes that birth order for you?
The attention seeking part of it, I think, always fighting for the attention. I've always idolized my sister. Beautiful and smart and fun and has a great head on her shoulders. I've never really seen her in a bad headspace until later on in life. She was always like a light on my household, and my parents tended to, from my perspective, favor her. But it was so funny because she always said they favored me.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't feel that way at all.
Isn't that interesting? What would your parents say if they could answer that question?
Please. Everything's equal. We love you equal. What you get, she gets, and what she gets, you get. And they're still like that to this day. But what I've realized is treating your children equally in the sense of you get and you get isn't necessarily treating them equally. That was their definition of treating us equally. It wasn't mine.
Yeah, because everyone has different needs, right?
Yes.
So what kind of needs do you think you had that you weren't getting met?
I think acceptance of differences, or whether it came to my interest. My parents were very supportive humans. It wasn't that. It was when I didn't do exactly what, let's say, the neighbors would approve of, or if it was like a little off the cuff, it just wasn't accepted, in my opinion. And that was hard because it almost made me feel like sometimes I was doing something wrong when I really was just expressing myself. Mm-hmm. I always wanted to change things about me, not in a bad way, but like my hair, I've never liked my hair. So growing up in my teenage years, when you actually start really caring about that, I did everything under the sun to have straight hair. And my hair's wavy. It's not curly. And my mom came from this background of, you're beautiful, your hair's gorgeous, etc. And it was such a great encouragement as a young girl, but it also led me to feel like I had no choice but to have that hair, and I didn't want it. I wanted to look a certain way. And I knew it because I have pictures of me getting out of the shower, and I remember blow drying my hair. This is like before flat irons and all that, or that has saved my life, really. Or even I felt right. There wasn't an opportunity for me to discover how to make my hair look the way I wanted it. There was never an exploration in that sense. It was automatically shut down. You're beautiful. Your hair's gorgeous, blah, blah, blah. But I wanted a change. I wanted it to look a certain way. The door wasn't open to do that, to explore that. And I was a teenager, so you can't just go and spend $200 on your hair to do something to it to make it better. So in that sense, I felt like I wasn't being heard, and I wasn't trying to change myself. I just wanted that. That's a big memory of mine, because it wasn't that I wasn't accepting myself. I was very accepting of myself. I wanted a certain thing. I wanted support.
Yeah. And it's also like self-expression. And it's really interesting because what you're talking about is the balance between accepting yourself as you are and the idea of being able to make positive changes or to enhance your natural beauty.
And it would make me miserable. I would try my best. And I didn't want to go anywhere where there was humidity. I would go on trips and be miserable the whole time because I didn't like how my hair looked. So it had an adverse reaction to the whole "you're beautiful" thing, because I didn't feel that way because I didn't like it. Right. And I felt like that was my right to not like my hair. It wasn't offending anyone. It was a personal choice. Yeah. And I feel like at myself as a parent now, I'm very highly aware of that. And when my children express something that they don't love, I support them in the best ways I can without telling them that they need to be fixed or changed. I am that support system for them. You want this, you want your hair this way, or you want to wear that outfit? Fine. Let's do it.
I think that's really important. It reminds me of people who want to make changes with plastic surgery. Let's say somebody wants to get a facelift or put in some lip filler or something like that. I'm always of the school that if that makes you feel better, go for it. I don't have a problem with any of that. And I think it's important to not push the accept yourself as you are, as a prison, that you're stuck, trapped in this body with this hair, with this face. If you want to do something that's not hurting anyone else, why not? If it makes you feel good.
And that's how I see it. And I saw it like that back then as well. I just wasn't being attended to in the way that I felt like would have made me feel better.
Right.
Telling you someone like they're pretty when they don't feel pretty isn't helping.
Yeah. And sometimes you can not understand how, as a parent, you can push something off and think, oh, just get over it. Your hair is beautiful, where you don't really understand the extent to which it's impacting the person on the inside. It's really cool that you have the mindset now to supporting your kids in what they want to do.
Yeah, I've learned my children. They're very similar, but they're very different. But I know what makes one tick and I know what makes the other one tick. And it's been like a little case study for me to try and figure them out and know what works with them, because I don't treat them equally.
Yeah.
The truth. I don't, because they're two different humans with they're boy, girl, almost 5 years apart. One's a teenager. So, I don't treat them in the same way. And I'm proud of that. Financially, they will both get equivalent things unless one needs it more or one isn't. I just see it so differently than how I was raised. And not give a child something, but not the other, but the other one might need something different that the other one doesn't need. So it's just being, and having them understand that they are two different human beings, and that what my son, Peter, is 14, is allowed to do, my 9-year-old Mila cannot do. It's just, but it's accepting that. It's accepting your different phases of life. And just because Peter's sleeping out his friends all the time doesn't mean that you get to do that because you're 9.
And
it's situational, really.
It gets them. Absolutely. And it helps them to be in touch with their own needs. If you're telling your kids that you know what they need and they all need the same thing, they don't really have an access to their inner knowing of what they really need.
Exactly.
What about when you went to school as a child? What kind of student were you?
I was an A student.
I'm all the way through?
I did really well in school. I liked school. I went to a Catholic school from 1st to 8th grade. Kindergarten, I went to public because it was around the corner, but 1st through 8th grade, I was in a very small Catholic school. If anyone knows about Catholic school, because they're so small, you're typically with the same human beings for 8 years of your life. The families, the events that you do, your friendships. There was a core of us that were always there. Our families are still friends. It's one of those situations when I see them, it's no time has passed because we spent so much time together. So when I left that school, we had a decision to make, right? So you went to Catholic grade school. You either continue. There was 2 Catholic high schools that a lot of the people went to, and then there was the public. And my sister had chosen to go the public route. I was familiar with it. It didn't scare me. I tried out for cheerleading for the high school and made it. And I met my friends that summer before high school. And it just was easy because I felt, because I was in that cheerleader group, I already had a group. I didn't have to look for friends as much, because only a few of the kids that I went to grade school went to that high school. High school for me I did not like it. I liked being that age and the fun we had. And I dated a guy the whole time. And that was really exciting. But other than that, like the actual content that I was being like, and the delivery of the instruction just was not stellar. And I remember knowing that then, and I was 15, saying to myself, what? None of these teachers are inspiring me.
Oh.
I don't feel inspired. I don't feel inspired. I would get any excuse to get out of class, go to the bathroom, walk around. I did not want to sit there. I still maintained my grades because I did the work, but actually sitting in those classes and listening to the teachers just didn't inspire me at all. So I capitalized on my social life, and I would go in the hallway and find my boyfriend or, you just like avoidance behavior because I just was bored. And not because I thought I was too smart. I just wasn't being stimulated and it just wasn't stimulating to me. But I did my job, Mitzi. I was like, got to get my grades, got to stay on the cheerleading squad and all the things. So I also did softball in high school, and I'll never forget, I didn't play. I sat on the bench because there were so many girls that were so much better than me. And I just wanted to play. I liked it. I remember it was my junior year. My mom would come to the games and to watch the team, I would be on the bench the whole time. At one point I was laying down on the bench because after a while, you're like, all right, this is boring, but I stuck with it. I don't know why I did. I just did.
That's funny. Well, you must have had something you were learning from that experience.
Yeah, I think it was like I didn't have that I need to win attitude. I just wanted to be a part of it and I like to play, but I think my parents were more disappointed than me that I wasn't playing. Because it's sad. Yeah. You see your kids sitting on the bench the whole time, you feel bad for them because you feel like it might be crushing their soul that they're not getting to play, but it's a part of life, that whole thing. And my son's going through that now. With the older you get, the harder it is to play the sports because there's more people that want to do it, but less spaces on the team. Right. So it's a learning curve of discovering that, yeah, I'm not the best one. And that's okay.
Everybody has a valuable place in everything that we do. But it's a really good lesson about that you have to have the skills to play at a certain level.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that there's nothing wrong with that.
It's the dedication you make to what you're doing. Are you practicing outside of practices? Are you going on the weekends and playing whatever the sport is? Did you invest in training, like private training and things like that? I didn't have that in me to do those kinds of things. And my son isn't presenting like that either. When he started playing football, and then it was basketball and baseball, and it's been a revolving seasons with him. He was pretty good when he was little. And now as he gets older, he's 14. The kids they're towering over him. They're huge. I don't know what these kids are eating or drinking, but they are humongous men at 13 years old and 14 years old. But there are those kids that do invest in the training and travel year round and all those things. And if Peter wanted to do that, I would do it if I felt like he was dedicated and putting in the work. But he hasn't shown me that yet. He could stay where he is and it won't disrupt my whole family's life to get him training and things like that.
Yeah, that's intense. I've done that with my kids too. And it's definitely intense. But I was always the kind of mom that was like, you can try it. If it's not a good fit, then you don't have to stay on the team. You don't have to stick with it after a certain point. And that's okay because they're just discovering what they like. And I think being a participant in something is just as valuable. Sometimes you don't need to be the best at something, just to participate and enjoy it.
Yeah. And the camaraderie, right? The teamwork, you're cheering on your friends. It's being a team player. There's a reason why that companies look for that, because there's always going to be someone that's a better, bigger, making more money than you. But for you to be a support system for that person is just as important and show off your capabilities.
It feels to me like you really enjoyed the social aspects or being a part of something, being a member of a group. Would you say that's true?
Yes. But in the same sentence, I'll say I love being alone. So I'm a little bit of both. I really enjoy my alone time. I always have, even when it was not considered acceptable. I wasn't a loner by any means, but being by myself is sacred to me. It's calming and it allows me to really think my thoughts and know myself, that I don't need anybody really around me to be happy and to be content.
Was it always like that?
In a way, I just don't know if I let that part of me show often for fear of looking weird or not. The judgments come out. I've always liked my alone time.
And in high school, when you were enjoying that time with the social stuff and also getting good grades, being it seems like you've had it all there in high school. How would you characterize that time of your life?
Yeah, it was, because my high school wasn't very big either. The groups of people that were in that environment, there was the cheerleaders, football players. That was the group I was really a part of. And then I had friends that weren't. They were like the smokers, being like in school to smoke cigarettes. And I was friends with all of them. And as the years progressed, I had my core group of friends, but I enjoyed a little bit of all of the different people that I went to school with. And yeah, I would say I've been an overachiever in a sense since childhood. And I knew I had to get the grades. I did all the things I had to do to advance in my life, right? My mom's an educator. Education's always been on the forefront of the family, and like college is happening, and wherever you want to go, we're going to pay for it because we value higher education and things like that. So I always did what I was supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. You knew how to play. You had to play the game.
Correct.
Yeah. But you're a people person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It sounds like you find it so easy to establish rapport with others.
I do. I love meeting new people, and it's really come out in my life with where I've moved and the experiences that I've created for myself that allow me to get to know other people and to understand where they come from and to bond with them over whatever it is at the moment we're talking about. And yeah, I love it. I love it because I feel good within myself. So for me, when you feel good about yourself and who you are, and you feel that confidence, it's very fun to meet other people because you want to share that with others and see how you can help them. I think you would categorize me as a problem solver as well. Like I always want to help somebody. Like when they say something about, I don't know, it could be like something they want to do to their house that's different. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you have to check out this website. And I'm always, to a fault, I want people to be helped in whichever way, shape, or form it is. And I've learned as I've grown up that being a listener is better than trying to solve people's problems. Listening is what they need. They need someone to hear what they're saying and not necessarily fix that, whatever their fix the problem.
Yeah.
So it's been a practice of mine to sit back and listen. Right. And not give the Renee in the back of my head. It's the Renee's going, well, you should tell her that she should do this, or you should tell him that he could go here. And no, that's not the point. And if they wanted that information, they would ask for it. And that's been something that I've been like consciously practicing in the past 2 years.
That really hits with me. I can feel that because that's something I've been working on for myself as well. I think that's something a lot of people do. We have a tendency to want to immediately fix or direct or say how we can help. And we don't always need to do that. Sometimes we help best by just sitting back
and listening.
Yep.
Having an open ear and open heart.
Yep. And just being open.
Just being there.
Just being open.
As a sounding board.
And that comes from self-worth too. Being able to do that, I think, comes from a place of being very secure in yourself. You don't need to add anything. Everything can just be okay as we are.
Yeah, that's so true. I never thought of it that way. That's a really good way to put it. It really is true. Like you don't need to be the reason why someone feels better. To be the one that suggested this, and then they took the suggestion and now they're winning. Right. You know what I mean? It's not, it's more of just being empathetic and compassionate and just being there is just being present.
Being present without the ego being present.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
totally.
Where did you go to college then?
I went to Penn State University, and I ironically got a full scholarship there. One day, this gentleman called my house. So background, my mom is an immigrant from Spain. And so I'm half Spanish. When you fill out the form, you write Hispanic, and because I am, and I got one like $3,000. We're talking about the 90s, so the college wasn't as expensive as it is now, but it was like $3,000 a semester scholarship for minority. But then I get this call from this gentleman that I'll never forget it. The phone's on the wall with the cord.
Yes.
The phone. You have no idea who it is because there's no caller ID.
Yeah.
And I picked it up, and this gentleman's asked me for me, and I said, this is Renee Clementi. And he said, I'd like to let you know, my name's Daniel Trevino, and I just wanted to let you know that we want to offer you a full ride to Penn State. And I said, who are you? Like, I did not believe it. I didn't apply. There was nothing telling me that this would be coming. And my mom wasn't home from work yet. So I get off the phone with him. I was like, oh, I don't know what that was. And my mom comes home and calls him back and has this whole conversation with him. It turns out I was the highest applicant. So there was twofold. I was the highest. I went to the College of Health and Human Development, which is a section of Penn State that it's just, if you know what you might want to major in. And then I was also a minority. So between those two, they offered me 5 full years paid for to Penn State.
Whoa.
Yeah. At the time, I was proud, but I was like, I didn't realize like how amazing that is. And yeah, quite frankly, I was a little upset that I wanted to be there for summer session. I got in fall session, full ride. Like I was like the dream, but I wanted to move out of my house. And it wasn't because of my parents. It was because I was seeking freedom of expression, new experiences. I was done. I was done with my hometown, done. So what did I do? I applied for an internship. And I got an internship, and I went up to Penn State summer session of 96 with all my friends that got in summer session. And I lived for free then too. I had a stipend. I worked in a nutrition lab. I originally thought I wanted to be a nutritionist when I was that age. So I was like, oh, this will go towards just knowledge about this industry. And I learned a lot. It was like when Olestra, do you remember Olestra when the fat-free potato chips came out?
Oh,
you remember that?
Yes, so I do.
That summer, the Dr. Barbara Rolls, I worked under her, and I was one of the first people to taste that because I was like, what is this? Like chips that don't make you fat? This is great. It was fat-free potato chips, but Olestra was, I don't know, probably not that best thing for you.
I was going to say, isn't that toxic?
Yeah, I think it might be. And we all know fat-free is not really free. Then you're getting high sodium and high. There's always something that's replacing the delicious fat that's in things.
Yeah. But at the time they were doing research.
Oh yeah, she was big in the industry, and I got to work with her and get paid and live and hang out with my friends. I met my best friend that summer. We're still best friends to this day. And I met my husband at Penn State.
Okay. Very good. So what's the story on that?
So he was friends with my friend. So my brother-in-law now, we were the same age, and my husband's 2 years older. So he graduated, but we had hung out a bunch of times, and I really liked him. And I think he liked me too at the time. We were just like magnetized to each other all the time, but I was dating someone else, and so was he. So it was like the timing wasn't right. But I always had this thing for him, always. And when I finally graduated, I applied to NYU. I got into NYU for speech pathology for communication disorders, and he's from New York. So I moved to Manhattan in 2000 after I graduated Penn State and moved in. It was another fascinating time of my life to make that decision just to move to New York. When I look back at it, I had like really big balls to do that. Move to New York City. I've never lived there before, but I wanted to continue my schooling. And ironically, now they don't really take the GRE anymore. Like grad schools don't look at that score, but I could not do well on those tests. Like the SATs, I bombed terrible. The GREs I took twice, and none of my parents' alma mater, St. John's University, and my mom went to Hunter College, both in New York. I got accepted at neither of them. And my dad donates like money, lots of money to these schools because he believes in giving back and whatnot. But I did not get accepted to either of those schools because of my GRE scores. So NYU, my only choice. I got in, and I was like, if this is what I'm going to do, because they didn't accept GRE scores. So I moved to Manhattan. And in the application process of going there, when you're filling out, now back then you fill out applications, it's all handwritten, you mail it in. And it says to check off where you want to live. I got put in this amazing building on John Street in Manhattan by Wall Street. This apartment that NYU put me in was big, tall ceilings. It was a residential building that NYU rented. I have no idea how I got placed there, but I'm so glad I did, because my friends some people from Penn State that I knew had gone to NYU too, but they were living in a dorm pretty much, like that close quarters. And I had my own room. We lived in a building with a gym and a rooftop and overlooking the Brooklyn Bridge, the Manhattan Bridge. I could see everything. It was such a cool place to live.
Wow.
And it just fell into my lap. People would come visit me and say, how do you have this space? Are you a bazillionaire or who? No, NYU.
That's crazy. You must have been in such a good state of flow, like a state of alignment at that time in your life, would you say?
I would, because at that point I had broken up with my boyfriend who was living in Manhattan also, because I couldn't get my mind off of Yanni, my husband. Could not get my mind off him. Like, no matter what I knew. And then one day he showed up at my door.
Wow.
And I was like, I guess I have to try this and see if it would work, because it's calling on me. It's calling on me. It's calling on me. So I broke someone's heart in half, but my heart became fuller. It was the best time of my life. We were going out, we were hanging out. I was going out with my friends who were all working, and I was the poor grad student. So they would just come out happy hour and take care of it all for me. And then my husband Yanni lived on Long Island. So he would come in on the weekends and hang out with me. And then it just worked out. It worked out. It was a very exciting time for me. I remember calling my mom from the World Trade Center, the original, on a payphone, because at that time cell phones were still not common.
Right.
They were getting there, but it was still new. But I remember calling her from the World Trade Center at the bottom. So I took the train, and I don't remember why I called her, but I told her, because I had gone and talked to the boy that I was dating at the time to tell him, I think it's time that we end this. And I remember that getting on that payphone, calling my mom and saying, I did it. And she was, what did you do? I said, I broke up with this guy. I really feel called to date. At the time we called him John. He's Yanni, but throughout college, he hid his Greek name. He was John. I had to switch over. I was like, you're throwing me for a loop. Who's Yanni? Who's that? So I remember my mom's, and I said, Mom, I really feel I'm so elated and excited about what's coming, but I feel like I don't want to jinx it. I feel like it's too good. And she said, that's because you're in flow and you're on a high and you're vibing. Don't think about that. Think about the excitement that you're having right now.
Yeah. Oh my God. You're making me think, because when you're really in tune with that, I call it the inner guidance system. When you're really in tune with that, and you can get afraid of it. You can think this is too good to be true, or I'm afraid it's too good. It's too much. And then we do something to mess it up.
Yeah.
It reminded me of one of my favorite quotes from Carl Jung. I'll paraphrase. He says, sometimes you have to do something unforgivable just to go on living. And that reminds me of when you have to make a hard decision that is going to hurt somebody else, but it's the best thing for you.
Yeah. Yep. And it has to be that. You have to be about yourself and what makes you tick and what fuels your fire. Because if you don't, you're living for someone else, and it's all within. Your happiness is an inside job. So what I think is that you have to go with what your gut is telling you. And along the way, you might struggle with that because you might lose friends, or you might lose a girlfriend or a boyfriend. But ultimately, you're setting them on their own path to what's right for them too. So it might hurt, but then the path will lead you to where you're supposed to be. And once you realize that you have all the power within you, it changes everything. And the outside circumstances are not even a factor. It's our intuition. It's one of our higher faculties. It's what separates us from all the other beings on earth, is that we have these intellectual faculties that dogs don't have and that squirrels don't have. We have the capability to do anything because we have these higher faculties, and that's what separates us. We all have our five senses.
So it's telling us which direction to go in.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to trust that, even though it might feel a little difficult in the moment.
Yes. And I had been feeling a certain way for a while in the relationship I was in. And I knew at that age, even as young as I was 21, that I shouldn't feel like things were stale in a relationship. You're too young to feel like you're not happy in the situation you're in. And it's not for any other reason other than I lost that loving feeling.
Yeah.
And I was feeling it very strongly magnetized to another human. So for me, it was I need to make this decision, and it's going to hurt somebody else. But at the end of the story is that his path wasn't meant for me either. My path was going away from him, but he found his new path soon after. We turned our pain into power and empowered ourselves. I took a chance on this person that I really was literally magnetized to since I met him. But the timing wasn't right, and timing's everything. So the timing became right.
Yeah. And it's really a big deal because you're talking about your life here. If you're not in alignment with something, you have to make the tough choices.
Yeah, you do. And it sometimes is at the cost of hurting someone else. And I still am not very proud of how I handled that whole situation, but it's a part of my growth. And I would never do that to someone ever again. It was something I felt like I had to do. And the way I had to go about it just wasn't pretty.
Yeah. But it was a short-term hurt for a long-term gain for both of you.
Correct. So in walks Yanni back into my life after years of hanging out and having the best time together, but not living anywhere near each other. And here I am 45 minutes away in Manhattan, and he's out on the island, Long Island. It was like the accessibility was there. I took a chance, and I'm still living with him. So it was a good choice that I made. And you're actually married. We have two beautiful kids. And I wouldn't do life with anyone else. He's my person, and he's always been deep down in my heart. So for me, making that break was necessary to live my best life. And I did. I lived in Manhattan at this awesome apartment for a full year of exciting dates and going out for dinners and really just being excited to be with somebody again. Excited. My stomach would get in knots before he would come over because I was just so enamored with him. And I always was. That's the whole thing.
Yeah. Do you still have that? You still have those butterflies?
Oh my gosh, yes. Yes. It goes in waves, Mitzi. It's not like all the time. But I have found in my journey of mindset for the past 3 years that my appreciation for him has grown so much because he's allowing me to follow my dreams and start this company.
Yeah.
And it's at the expense of his paycheck because I'm not making a paycheck right now. And it's not fabulous yet, but it will be. And I know that. So for me, it's important for my feelings towards him have quadrupled because of his generosity and patience and understanding that this is something that I need to do and want to do. And it's a dream for our family, not just for me.
Yeah. And your own personal growth. When you tune into your own personal growth, it enhances all of your relationships with other people.
It's so true. And just by my putting the work in with myself, it has spread across my whole entire household.
Yeah.
And I've seen, it's funny, Mitzi, I've seen other people start doing things that I, in my opinion, never thought they would do in the best of ways. And I'd like to think that I might have a little bit of an influence on that. Like seeing me on this journey, it's allowing other people to live their truth and what they want. And it doesn't come without the rocky roads, but it certainly opens doors when people see other people doing it. And they're like, well, wow, I can do that. I've thought about doing X, Y, or Z for so long, and I haven't taken the jump. I'm going to do it now. And that's, for me, is what this is all about, is for the people I love, the people I will love, the people I will get to meet. This is what we want for everybody to experience. It's one life as far as we know.
That's right.
So if we are not living our passion, our purpose, if we're not living with someone that we love, if we are settling for less than what we deserve, life it's going to go by, and we're going to go to our graves with our music still in us.
That's right. So at that time of your life, you followed your heart, you met and committed to Yanni, and then you were in grad school.
There's a pretty significant event that went on.
Okay.
9/11.
Oh, okay.
And so that, I'll keep it brief because I could talk for days about it. And I actually dug up my photos to show you. So I lived on John Street. It's my first full year of grad school, September 2001. I was in my apartment. I wake up, and I used to watch the news. Like, that was something that was a part of my day. And I think that was just behavior that I learned from my surroundings. And that's what you do. You wake up, you put on the news, you see what's going on. It's the last thing I put on anymore.
Yep.
But this day was significant because when the screen popped up, I was getting ready to go to the gym. I didn't have class till 2:30. So I was going to do the gym. I was going to do some shopping, and I was going to do everything I had to do before class. And the one building was already on fire when I turned the news on. And it was like alerts and alarms everywhere about it. And I got an email from my mom, and there was banter the whole time between I had an apartment, a landline, and then I had my cell phone, which was like fairly like a new thing to me at that time. And I emailed my mom and I said, someone crashed into the World Trade Center. So she was here in Pennsylvania. So she was a teacher. So they all they didn't have access to TVs to watch all this stuff at the time. Like, nothing was streamed. It wasn't a thing. And then she wrote back, and then I was on back and forth with my parents, just marveling at what was going on. At the time, you think it's just an accident.
Right. Yes.
And you're like, oh my gosh, someone in a plane like really did it wrong. They really didn't navigate properly. And the word terrorist never was something that was not in my repertoire. I didn't think about terrorism. It wasn't something I was familiar with. I was 22. So anyways, then the second plane hits, and my mom is screaming like I don't know where she was watching it somewhere. And I was like, what is going on? My thoughts are, you don't experience this stuff like this. So when you're watching it, you're almost in complete shock. Long story short, I go up to the roof of my building. I had a perfect bird's eye view of the buildings. I was maybe 10 blocks away. Then a huge spark, and this starts happening right in front of my face. Watching it. I'm watching this happen.
Crazy.
Live. So then there was maybe 10 people with me up on the roof watching. And then when the first building went, a gentleman, I'll never forget this. He goes, guys, I think we should get the hell out of here. Yeah. So we back down to my apartment.
Wow.
Look out my window. This is coming. So this is the cloud that rolled down my street and all the surrounding streets. And then my apartment went black. So it was a sunny day, black. And you don't know what to do. I have goosebumps even just talking about it, because being that young and living in a city and going through something like this, you don't really process it until way after.
Yeah.
Like years after. I still thought I had class. So I left my apartment. The alarms are going off and we're being evacuated, right? I'm walking. This is me with my school bag, thinking I'm going to class at 2:30.
Wow.
I left with my stuff. That's all I left with. And I walked with a gentleman that lived on my floor. I had no idea who he was, but he was so kind. We walked together from John Street. Now, I lived near Brooklyn Bridge and I lived near Manhattan Bridge. I lived near all the bridges, but the only bridge that I could get over and have my now husband picked me up on the other side because he worked in Queens was the 59th Street Bridge. it doesn't sound like a lot, but it was 3 hours of walking.
Yeah.
All the way up to the 59th Street Bridge, over the 59th Street Bridge, and met my husband there. And he took me to his parents on Long Island. And my dad ended up picking me up 2 days later. My parents were freaking out. It was like so surreal and bizarre what was going on. And then for the months after that, there's a very distinct smell that came from that whole area. Probably until I moved out the following year. It was literally burning things, burning. That's the smell. And it was very distinct. I would take a shower and leave to go to class, and my hair would reek like death. It smelled like death. And just knowing that was all those people's gravesite,
yeah,
it chills you to the core thinking about it. And I thank goodness that I did not witness what some people witnessed that day.
Yeah.
God was on my side that day because I didn't see the tragic things that were going on. I was just trying to focus on, what am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to go? Who should I contact? Things like that. And it was for months after, just watching the cleanup and the fires and I would walk by there and just, man, it's almost like you don't believe it.
Yeah.
You're just in this mode of denial and shock.
You dissociate from it.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
But what I watched in New York City after that time was a miracle. And it was magical. It was love, camaraderie.
Mm.
It almost seemed to have shifted the paradigm of the city, which was really powerful to see, because being from Pennsylvania, people are really nice here, but in New York, it's rough. It's tough. It's tough. Everyone's got a little edge. Everyone's wondering what, if you're nice to them, what do you want from me type thing. But I saw that paradigm shift in the best of ways. And it was very powerful. And I was so happy that I got to witness that part of it. Yeah. So I could go on for days about that day, but I want to move us forward into, getting my first job on Long Island.
Yeah.
And interviewing for what I, at the time, didn't realize was my career. You're just going through the motions, like,
yes,
done grad
what you're
school,
supposed to do,
now
right?
let's get job. And it was a very easy decision for me to stay in New York. I was head over heels in love.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like there was much back here for me.
Okay.
The small town, I wasn't excited by it. I took another chance and another leap. And looking back now, it really shocks me that I just was making these huge decisions.
Wow.
That, but the beautiful thing about it was that I always knew I could come home.
Yeah.
There's always an option. If things didn't work out with my husband, boyfriend at the time, I could just move home. And I had my family with open arms. They would have loved it. I started working. I met some of my best friends in the world. I still keep in touch with all these years later.
And what was the job?
So, speech pathologist in a school district. I worked on Elmont, Long Island, which is a melting pot of immigration. Okay. So everyone first comes to Elmont when they move to New York, it seems,
Okay.
And we were right by where the Belmont Stakes is. So a lot of the families worked with the horses and things like that. And I loved that job. I really did. I met the coolest people. I loved what I was doing. The kids they would prefer to be at school than at home.
Okay.
So it was fulfilling in that sense. And I started working with children with severe autism at first. I learned a lot from that about behavior modification and things like that I have taken with me to this day. What I was learning there of how to work with these children, I didn't feel personally satisfied because their language wasn't flourishing. It was rough. There was a lot of physical. I was hit a couple of times. My hair was pulled, but I just powered through, and I just wanted to learn how to help them. But then over time, I was getting burnt out, getting in my car, driving home and saying, what just happened today? We had to evacuate a whole room because this kid was having a meltdown and he was beating people up. And we just had all these little kids in the hallway, and his speech session was during that time. So he lost out because it was a lot of feeling defeated in the sense where I didn't feel like I was making a difference in their lives.
Yeah.
And that was hard for me too, when I was pouring so much into them. And it started wearing me out. I started burning out. So my husband and I, Yanni, and I got engaged. We got married. And the following year, I asked to be put with even just some typically developing children. Like I didn't want to abandon these kids. I was with them for 4 years, but I also was seeking, I guess, response. I was seeking satisfaction in my job. What I learned in grad school and what I worked so hard for was being applied, and I was seeing the results.
Yeah. It's
So,
again, it's like a pattern of the same kind of thing. It's following your heart, going where you feel alignment and knowing when things are off, because it's totally understandable when you're in a high stress situation like that in your job to need a break or need a change, a shift.
yes. And that's when I started developing migraines. And looking back, I laugh because I told my husband, I'm like, I blamed it on the job, but it was like right after we got married. So
could have been either one.
I didn't realize, come to that realization years later, that might have been just the stress of being married and living in New York. And we were, at that time, we had bought a house and it burned. We had to build it. There was so much going on. Wow. And I was 25.
Okay.
My husband had a building company, so he built my house, and it took years because of the permits and all this crazy stuff they do on Long Island that I don't think happens anywhere else, or maybe it does. I don't know. But so we built a beautiful home, a dream home for anybody, really. But to live on Long Island in a brand new home is pretty much unheard of. It's, unless you're Jennifer Lopez, it's really expensive. Everything is really expensive. So our construction took a long time because we ran out of money, and then it just took a long time. But my husband's company built it, so we had that built-in support of family helping out and things like that. And then I had my son in 2008, my dream child. I remember it so well. That of just holding him. Yeah. And just being in awe of the fact that I made that. Holy moly.
Such a miracle.
It really is. And if you
how did becoming a mom change you after that?
So it's interesting. After the birth of both of my children, I was going through a hard time, and it wasn't because of them. So my son in 2008, just like everything else, crashed. Not my son, he didn't crash. The market crashed. Yeah. My husband shut down the business. Actually, he moved it into my home. So we had a humongous unfinished basement. So then from then on, I was breastfeeding my son and with workers going in and out of my house. As a mom, you go through all the hormonal weirdness, and then you have a kid that's latched on to you, and it's just an odd experience. And then to have like strangers coming in and out of my house, and I was trying to have my time with my baby, and it was not very peaceful. So what changed me was, it might not be the best thing to say. I realized that I was going to be responsible for someone for the rest of my life. And that I wouldn't sleep well for the rest of my life. Like thinking about, how I can help my kid, how I can take care of him better. But I also felt a huge amount of responsibility because I was home. I stayed home for 9 months with him, but my husband worked a lot of hours. He wasn't present. And the baby just didn't excite him as much as he was just there. The baby was there. He would hold him, but there was no interaction. So he was like, yeah, here you go. He loved him, but he was not fully invested. He was more trying to survive the breakdown of his company, and what was he going to do next, and how was he going to provide for us? Yeah, no, I can understand that. At the time, I didn't realize that was what was happening. In hindsight, is how we can connect dots. And he didn't tell me till years later that he struggled with finances during that time. And I assumed that he had stockpiled money or what. You don't think, and that my life didn't change at all. So I didn't realize that he was like robbing Peter to pay Paul, and just trying to stay afloat. And I had my different needs than him. I was needing love and companionship and a partnership raising our little boy. I needed that. And I felt very like everything was put on me with the child, and I accepted it, and I wouldn't change it. But it definitely puts a little divot in your excitement and happiness, because when you're feeling completely responsible for everything for the child, it's a lot. It's a lot. And I've always been very independent in that sense, where I don't want people needing me. I want to live. And if you need something, I'm there to help you. But like the full-time need thing, it was hard for me.
Yeah, because you definitely give yourself up as a mother. You do.
Yeah.
And it's so hard. I don't think people talk about it enough, how hard that really is. Your needs are totally out the window
Yeah.
for a while, a long while.
And it's so true. I always talked about it openly. My sister-in-law and I chatted all the time. Man, if I think about it, I voiced a lot of this. Like, I was not ashamed of feeling the way I was feeling. I know people probably judged me for what I would say about parenthood, but it's not that you don't love your kids. It's that's what people perceive it as when you complain about the ins and outs of parenthood.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the child. It has everything to do with myself and how I'm feeling. Your body's all weird, and your clothes, you're in between 10 sizes of clothes at any time. And just that, the lack of sleep, all those things, not wanting to do mommy groups. Like, I was not into that at all. And people really, I would assume to say that they probably judged me for actually talking about it out loud.
It's interesting though, because you probably ended up with a much healthier outlook in the long run than someone who would suppress those feelings or feel like they're not appropriate to share. Your feelings are your feelings, and they're valid, and sharing them is the only way you can work through them.
It's so true. And it's funny, Mitzi, because people, when I would say things, people had plenty to say once that lid was open.
Exactly. Because they've been dying to try to express it themselves, and they haven't had the safety or the open door. So you made it safe for them.
I did.
I love that.
I did. And I found my buddies that we were in sync with all of that. The love of our children combined with the need to have little play dates for the moms with wine and pizza, and let the kids just roll around and poop everywhere. We really made it manageable and fun. And that's what got me through that whole time. I don't think I had postpartum, but I definitely, a year after my son was born, went through a really bad time.
Yeah.
It was getting more difficult with management, walking everywhere and trying new foods and all the things. And I was miserable.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I guess I got to try the peas with him today. Like, I didn't enjoy it. It was more of a task completion for me. And I look back now, and I don't know if I feel sad about that, because it was a real thing for me. It was like going through the motions for me. And my family was in Pennsylvania. My in-laws moved to Florida. I felt like I always felt like I was on an island on Long Island. Like, I was by myself. When I reflect on it, it's interesting, because I still would feel that way right now. I still would, because it was my circumstance at that time.
It's honest. I think there's so much integrity in honesty, because it helps other people who are feeling the same way, because there are people out there who feel the same way. And there are definitely days I felt like that. It's hard. Being a mother is hard, especially if you're that kind of a devoted mother, where you are like trying the different vegetables every couple of days, and you're doing all the different things the parenting book says you're supposed to do.
Yeah. But
it's definitely hard.
A little boy I have, and he's now grown into a beautiful 14-year-old, almost 15-year-old, who makes me proud on the daily.
Yeah.
As annoying as he could be, he's a teenager, so it's a part of the package. How I'm raising him is to have gratitude and be appreciative, and to understand how hard we work to give them the life that they have. Yeah. And he knows it, and he'll voice it. And that, to me, is successful parenting.
Exactly. Because you have to be open about everything. And then your kids are going to see, and they'll be able to trust you. They'll be able to feel honest in voicing their own feelings about things. And that's how they build that gratitude and the self-development. It's all part of the same kind of system. Like, you have to
It
think
is.
about intentionally about how you're doing this when you are raising your kids.
Yeah. And it really speaks volumes as to what I'm going to talk to you about the next event that happened in my life that
Okay.
shifted everything. It was in 2013. I was pregnant with my daughter, and we went to, I was the maid of honor, matron, that horrible word, of honor in my sister-in-law's wedding. So we planned her bachelorette party out in the Hamptons. I was out to here pregnant and couldn't drink and have fun with all the rest, but it was fine. But I woke up on June 2nd in the morning to drive back to my house on Long Island. And I called my husband and I said, all right, I'm on my way home. He's, can you just get home? You need to come home. I was like, I'm on my way. What's wrong? He's just get here. So when you get that tone of voice and that demeanor over the phone, you feel it in your bones.
Yes.
Knew something was wrong. So my parents had come up to New York to help him with Peter for the weekend because I was gone. And then I started doing all my calls. I'm like, something's wrong. Something's wrong. The first person I called was my brother-in-law, Matt, my sister's husband. I was like, he'll tell me what's wrong. I couldn't get a hold of my sister. I was trying all the people, but my heart was in my stomach. I was sick. And I finally got a hold of my sister. Oh, and she was like, Matt's dead. I was like, what? My brother-in-law, who I called first, had passed away, 37 years old. I'm driving, pregnant, driving.
Oh,
There is no description for what we went through that day. And I remember my sister saying, I'm just going to go lay with him. Okay, I'll talk to you later. I didn't realize they were in the hospital already. He had passed at the house in his sleep, heart condition of some sort. And I got to my house and we were just on like autopilot, pack the bags, get Peter, put him in the car, drive to Pennsylvania. And all the conversations we were having were like so surreal. The funeral plans. I stayed for the week. It was my last 2 weeks of work. So I just took the week and I went there to be with my sister. And God.
oh, I'm so sorry.
He was like my brother.
Oh.
Like they were high school sweethearts. They had 2 kids, 7 and 4 or 7 and 3 at the time. So going through that with her, I'm not even sure if she realizes the impact that it has on me to this day, because she was just trying to get through it. But
Right.
that was 10 years ago, just this past June. Looking back, I struggled with this so much. They handed me a box with his ashes in it. Like I was responsible for all the things because I was pregnant. So I had to let my head was even because I had to protect my daughter.
Yeah.
Inside. Like I didn't want to stress her. But I answered the door, Mitzi, and like the gentleman, the court, I don't know, whoever these people are at the funeral, he hands me a box with my brother-in-law's ashes in it. And I was like, oh my God. So I still have very vivid memories of that time. And I try not to think about it because it makes me sad.
Yeah.
And my niece and my nephew lost their dad, and my sister lost her husband, and my parents lost their son. And there's the various layers of grief that goes along with it but like I was saying, my son has made me proud for a long time. He would talk to Matt in the shower. I swear. He didn't even know I was listening. We had a big walk-in shower, so he was safe to go in and play. And I would just turn on the water, and I'd left it as a babysitter for 10 minutes. And I would hear him talk to him.
Wow.
And it was bizarre for me to hear that because I knew he was actually having conversation with him, because what else does a 4-year-old do? You can't make this up.
Right.
And to this day, he has a picture of Matt with him in his room. He was really connected to him and really connected to our relationship, all of our relationship. His cousin, they're the same age. My son and my nephew are the same age. They're both going into 9th grade. He really felt it for him too. And yeah, so that was another paradigm shift. Now I'm looking back, because it caused me to reevaluate my life, where I should be living, who I should be hanging out with. And it started my wheels turning about moving.
Mm. Yeah.
And a couple months after Matt died, I had my daughter. So Mila was born in September. And I couldn't have been more stoic when she was born. I was excited, but I didn't have it in me to feel the elation that you usually feel when you have baby.
Yeah.
So I was in the recovery room and I started feeling weird, and my blood pressure dropped so low. Like, they took my blood pressure. It was like, I don't even know what's low, 40, or it was like insanely, like, it was like death. And I just remember hearing, when your blood pressure drops, you could hear your blood flow in your ears. It's like a weird sensation. And they didn't know what was wrong with me. So they put me pretty much in like an induced type of coma. I think I was like dead for 24 hours. I have no idea what was going on.
Wow.
I just remember waking up and being like, whoa, that was scary. And my doctor didn't know what was wrong. Like, he couldn't find it. It seemed like maybe I was bleeding from somewhere. I had a C-section, but they couldn't find anything. It was like a bizarre issue that I was having. So I had to stay in the hospital for a full week.
Wow.
I had to get 2 blood transfusions. It was like not normal. And it set my sister over the edge, because she came to visit and she couldn't even really hang out with me. She wanted to have that connection with my daughter and just to be with the family. This was like a bright light out of a dark tunnel, this birth of this baby. So I gave birth to Mila, stayed home with Mila for a couple months. I cried almost every day. I didn't enjoy, again, like I said before, I went through a hard time after both my kids were born. Neither of them were their fault. I just was so deep in grief, so deep. So I would throw them in the car and drive down to Pennsylvania. And every time I would go to my sister's, it was just sad. It was Matt's house. It was where he lived. But in the same breath, like, the juxtaposition of this is so wild. I loved it there. And I felt so happy to be there.
Yeah.
Because where my sister lived was such a great community. Everyone was friendly. They would have parties. Everyone was good. It was community that we were lacking on Long Island. And I craved that. I loved coming here. And so fast forward, talking about the paradigm shift, I made a decision, another one, that we were going to move.
Yeah.
The catalyst was my sister calling me and saying, Renee, there's a speech therapist position opening in this school. Becky would be your boss. Becky's our friend.
Okay.
You need to do this. And I was like, Lorene, I have a New York licensure. I don't even know how to go about getting Pennsylvania licensure. I needed all those docs in place before I could even apply.
Okay.
So it launched into months. I'm talking, that was April. By July, I had signed the papers. I got hired. My husband got thrown completely for a loop, because I don't think he really thought it was happening.
Oh, geez.
And I said, we've talked about this. I said, we're going. So my 2 kids and I, Mila was barely 2 and Peter was going into 1st grade. And my parents helped us move, and I got in a U-Haul and I took all my kids' crap and I showed up in Pennsylvania, and they had rented me a townhouse. It was like the stars aligned.
Yeah.
No, my husband, I knew he'd be fine with it eventually. I've noticed in my marriage that I have to just make really quick and powerful decisions.
Okay.
It's what I know intuitively is right for our family.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't always love them, but at the end of the thought process, that's the only way we would make change, if that
Right.
makes sense, is if
Yeah.
I spearhead this.
Yeah.
So we lived 10 months apart. My husband would come down and visit, and I found babysitters and the gym and all my new doctors and all the things. And I started my job. Loved it. Loved it. I felt like the fuel was lighting my fire again as to my career.
Yeah.
I was really fading in New York, fading hard, fast.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, I was starting to feel like I was losing my passion for what I was doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So did you get that back when you moved?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. I just was so excited about the opportunities I was given and the families I was working with, and to work for a district that really and truly cares for the families. So I was very happy for a long time.
Yeah.
2020 hit.
Oh, okay. Yes. The old pandemic.
The good old pandemic hit. And Mitzi, I liked the pandemic. I know it sounds horrible, but I welcomed the slowdown.
Yeah. Yeah.
Open arms. To not have the option to go anywhere or do anything, it caused me to look within and be present
Yeah.
and really enjoy my family, because we weren't running from this place to that place to this sport to got to make dinner. I loved it because of that.
Was it during that time that you started to get involved with wanting to start something new?
It is. I've done a couple of different direct sales companies, CBD, and I'm still part of a wine company, One Hope, that I love. I'm just obsessed with it because it's all about give back for them. So for me,
Okay.
it's philanthropic, and that speaks to my soul.
Yeah.
And I love wine. So that helps. I started dabbling in these things, athleisure, and I discovered this world of multi-level marketing and multiple
Mhm.
streams of income without
Right.
even realize what I was doing. I just was like seeking. I guess at that point I was seeking.
Mhm.
What do I want to be known for? What do I want to do when I retire? Starting with one of these, I was in my head, I was thinking, I would do wine and charity for the rest of my life. That to me is amazing. So I really dove into that. And I really felt like I had a path beyond speech therapy. So I was on LinkedIn, and someone contacted me. Her name was Adrienne. I wish I could she'd pull up the message now, but she was speaking a language to me that I had never heard before, and providing this hope of really changing my life forever. And then we hopped on a call, and she sold me on a program. It was exactly what I was looking for. And then I got sold to another program, exactly what I needed, exactly what I was looking for, changed everything. And I did question her I said, of all the people, I just was so interested in how she was attracted to me on LinkedIn, like why
Yeah.
me and not other people. And she said, I see you do charity, and that's the type of people that we align with. That's the type of people that we want in our community. She was a good saleswoman.
Yes, they know how to get you.
And I started the TIR, the Thinking into Results program.
Okay.
And I spent an ungodly amount of money that I didn't have to be a part of that.
Yeah.
But it was the best money I've ever spent, because
Okay.
it's now driven me to want to provide that type of education to the kids. It's important for us to speak the same language as our kids.
Mm.
And not a lot of parents understand that they're not speaking the same language as their kids. And there's ways of going about it without seeming like you're their authority so much as to, you want them to be able to speak to you openly and have really great conversations.
People always want to think that somebody else in the family has to go into therapy. It's their problem. And they don't think of it as a whole connected unit, which is really how you need to approach it if you really want to have change happen.
It's so true. And our kids don't do a lot with their parents anymore. They have the computers, they have phones, there's not a lot of that good old time kicking the stones outside and
Yeah.
going out in the rain. And those actual life experiences that we grew up with, because we didn't have all that stuff. We did the things with our parents because it was more fun than doing nothing by ourselves.
Right.
So I can't stress enough how important this information is, how it can literally change people's lives overnight.
And it's all about empowerment and
yes, we
working
have
with the self.
learning about how your mind works.
Yeah.
Learning about decision making, learning how to take really healthy risks and not fear what other people are going to think of you.
Yeah.
Because that holds us back, really. Our peers, our parents, our coworkers, they squash you and it's not their fault. They don't understand it.
Yeah.
So they'll shut it down. We get in rooms like you and I are in CLS, it is palpable. You feel it. You feel the energy, you feel the excitement, you feel the like-mindedness, you feel the care. You genuinely care about each other.
Yeah. There's something about the group intention. There's a lot of science behind that.
Yeah.
Group intention and the power of a group to affect change.
And to have our kids grow up with that.
Yeah.
It could change everything. The mental health stats are through the roof.
Yeah. They're terrible. I know.
Horrible. And they're not going down. And the Band-Aid effect is not working.
No, because we're not being honest about it. We're not taking an honest look at what is really going on.
I think that a lot of great things came out of the pandemic. And one of them is the realization that your mental wellness is not something that you should be ashamed of if you're struggling. It's a very real thing. It's our brain. It's everything. If we're not right up here, nothing else is right.
Right. And it's something you should just do on a daily basis. Like you wash your face, you brush your teeth, you take care of your mental health as well. Right.
You say your affirmations. You're sick, you get help.
Yeah.
So you have cancer, you get help. You have the flu, you get help. So the same thing, what we get to do as people in the personal development world is that we get to change that. We get to change the outlook on mental wellness and really pour it into our kids that it's okay to not feel okay, but this is what we do to feel better.
Yeah. You think everybody has a superhero within?
1,000 bazillion trillion %.
Yeah.
And that is a lot of what I learned in my mindset program. Was that we were put on earth to be happy and to be wealthy and to prosper and to live the best life we possibly could live. And that is not what society does.
Yeah.
Glamorize long working hours. We glamorize the grind and working hard. And yeah, we do have to work hard in a sense, but it doesn't necessarily, like, you don't get a trophy for working hard. You don't.
You can take your own path. You don't need to follow the crowd. You can definitely be innovative and think outside the box.
And in doing that, you're teaching others that they can do the same.
Right. Yeah.
And anything that is on this earth has been created twice, right? Once in your imagination, once it's in your hand, right?
Yeah.
The computer we're talking on, this pencil, it was all an idea in someone's brain at one point.
Yeah.
First created up here.
Yeah. Definitely.
If we really think about that, it comes down to whatever you want to be or whatever you want to have, visualize it, and it can be yours.
It can. Yeah.
You stay in that frequency of excitement and desire. And this is all stuff that if I was a kid learning this, man, I feel like everything would be, I love my life, but I could have been doing so much more with my abilities and my attitude and my just vision of what my life could be.
Because it's interesting. Like, I was thinking about your whole program and the idea that when kids are little, one of the things that we do with them is we play dress up. You'll get them a whole set of clothing, and one of the items might be a superhero costume, and they dress up like that, and they run around the house when they're 3 years old, 4 years old, like pretending they're a superhero. They really embody the superhero or the ballerina or whatever it is, the clown, whatever's in the costume, the firefighter, whatever. It's always that they're in it. They're all in it. They know they're doing that. And then at some point we put away those costumes and we don't allow ourselves to put on the superhero cape anymore. We think it's not appropriate. But there are things you can do. And I've actually heard some people talk about this. Lisa Bilyeu comes to mind. Has a funky hairstyle and she wears this big jewelry. And I heard her say once that she gets up in the morning and she puts on her big necklace and her big fancy watch, and she feels like such a badass because she's got those items on. And so why not have something that you physically put on, or maybe you hold something in your pocket, or maybe it's a symbol you keep in your purse, or something that makes you feel like a superhero. It doesn't have to be the tutu or the cape that you had as a child, but it could be something else. And for some reason, we abandon that. And we think we can't do it or have it or carry
fear of judgment.
Yeah.
And that's one of the fears that we can't, this is going to sound bad, but we can't care what other people think.
Yeah.
Because they are not living your life. They don't live in your household. They're not paying your bills.
Yeah.
So why do we care what they think? It's like this false sense of needing to fit in the sense of, if I do something different, they're all going to say something. But the minute we stop caring about that in the healthiest of ways, we care about everybody, but once we start making decisions that suit ourselves, everything changes because we're living authentically who we are.
Yeah.
And if we talk about the law of attraction, once we do that, then we attract like-minded folks. And this is where the snowball effect happens. Like how I met you would have never happened if I didn't make a decision to pour into myself and make the realization that doing for yourself is not selfish.
Right.
It's not.
Yeah.
And if you call it selfish, great, but it's not negative selfish. It's
right.
It's not me saying to you something nasty because I feel horrible about myself.
Yeah.
That's selfish. But it's more of, just like we talked about before, just being a mom, your needs are always put last. What if we make our needs first? What would change? And changed everything.
And how much more could we help other people if we were feeling full?
If our cup was full, if the teachers that are teaching our kids, if their cups were full, our kids are spending 8 hours a day with someone else.
Yeah. They're
depleted. They are stretched in all sorts of ways. And that's not good for our kids to see.
Right.
Or experience. It's just, we were put here for a purpose. And it's not just to go to work and come home and watch TV. And that's what a lot of people are doing.
I know. They're just going through the motions. But it does come back to fear in a lot of ways. I was thinking about this too. And as I was preparing for our conversation, the idea that some of these people who are super successful, they use a technique called embodying their alter ego. So like Beyonce has this alter ego, Sasha Fierce, and J-Lo has Lola. And I was thinking about this. Do you ever picture yourself as an alter ego in any way? Have you thought about that?
I have, because I think I came up with a name a couple years ago of my alter ego, but it happened when I turned 40. I flipped the switch and I called it, excuse my French, but FU 40. Like it's the FU 40. I am now my own human. Now I am not going to spend 1 minute of my day doing something I don't like or love. I'm not going to associate with folks who speak about others or are negative. I didn't come up with a name, but I coined the term, like it's the FU 40 year, man. I'm 40 and don't mess with me.
Yeah.
I'm ready to take on the world.
Yeah. No, I love that. Just the other day I glanced at the news and I saw a picture of Gwyneth Paltrow getting off of her helicopter to go to the Hamptons. And I thought, that's me. That's my alter ego. I'm going to walk around like I'm Gwyneth Paltrow getting off a helicopter. Just walk across that tarmac and own it.
There's a lot to be said for that. There is. Just on our Greece trip, I did visualize, because when you travel in Greece, you take a bus to the plane. So it's almost like you're the feeling of you're getting on a private jet.
Okay.
Because you're bused to the plane and then you get on the plane the way people get on private jets.
Yeah.
So I did have that visual of myself going on a private jet with my family.
And why not?
excitement that you feel with
Yep.
just that thought, that possibility, because it is possible.
That's right. And that's the feeling that generates the attraction. That's the feeling that you have to embody before you're going to attract it to you. That's what they have to feel it first, right?
Yep. It's so true. I even choose to go to a yoga studio that feels very spa-like.
Mm-hmm.
That when you go there, there's all the classes that you could possibly take, but there's a tea area. They have beautiful showers, like clean, and the music is very mellow and wonderful, like meditative almost. And I would spend the day there if I could. Like you just feel when you walk in. I drive a half hour to go to this place. I have two yoga places right down the street. And there are days where I crave that place. And I go, that yoga room has a huge Buddha in the front, it's all candlelit, and it's just fabulous.
Because it's the feeling. It makes you feel like $1,000,000 when you're in that environment.
It does.
It's a vibe.
Yeah, it's a total vibe. Like
Yeah.
it's not, it is so lovely in there that I drive a half hour to go there at times because I'm craving to feel that feeling.
I would love that. I think that's really important. And there's a lot of people who just don't prioritize the feeling of things, and they do just go through the motions, and they are miserable and they don't understand. They're looking for some outside circumstances to change. And you really have to just put yourself into positions where you're going to feel that feeling and keep the doors open. And then more people and circumstances walk in. It's crazy, but it works. So interesting. And to teach kids how to do that and keep them, even if we teach them how to do it, I love that you're working with the parents too, because what happens is, even if we teach them in elementary school and they're feeling really good about themselves, at some point in between elementary school and then adulthood, they lose it again. And then it sometimes takes decades for people to come back to it. A lot of people who focus on their personal development are older. I wish there was a way we could just keep the momentum going the whole way through life.
That's our why. Bob Proctor, God bless him, in his talks, and you can YouTube, anyone who's listening, please YouTube Bob Proctor and listen to him speak. He mentions several times about how this material should be in schools and how our children should have access to this material. I'm learning about it in my 40s.
Yeah.
And unwiring and rewiring things that might not be serving me, and to just better myself. I just want to get better every day at everything, and at my parenting, and my career, with this new business I'm running, with my friendships, with my relationships. I just want to be better. I want to be a better listener. I want to be a better sharer. I want to be a better speaker. There's so many things that I want to do.
Yeah.
And I want to be. And that's not ever going to stop. And Bob, to the day he passed, never stopped learning. And he was 60 years in this professional development industry. He was one of the pioneers. He was mentored by the most amazing humans in this industry. And to think that we could, and we are, I'm going to say it in the way it should be said, that we are changing the educational paradigm by introducing these concepts to our youth.
Yeah.
You know, when kids don't know who they are, they're asked to make really big life decisions about what they want to be at 18.
Yeah.
But they were never asked probably before that, unless they were a kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? A cop or
and then, suddenly we expect them to know.
Suddenly. And it's funny because a lot of us, and I'm sure you heard it in school too, when you were growing up, was like, dream big, shoot for the stars. But no one's doing it. No, we couldn't follow anyone's lead because the people who were saying that aren't following their dreams, most of them.
Yeah.
This person, their dream was to be a country singer. They're a teacher and their dream is to be a country singer. They can do it, but they won't. Because they don't believe in them. They don't believe it's something that's possible. It's the power of Underwood. It's not me. You know,
it's the power of belief. That teaching people to believe in the power of belief, that would be something.
Believe in the unseen. Is what magic is. Because we only say, what do we say? I'll believe it when I see it. I'll see it when I believe it.
Yeah, definitely. Wow.
And all this stuff, Mitzi, too, about the law of attraction is all new to me over the past couple of years. You would hear it, but all right, I get it. You vibe with your tribe, like all those like little cutesy sayings, your tribe, vibe attracts your tribe. And it's science.
Yeah.
It's as scientific as gravity. gravity. It's a universal law. It's not an opinion. It's fact.
Mhm.
And I was led to believe growing up that's all woo stuff. Oh, law of attraction. But it is like saying, I'm not going to believe in gravity today.
Just because you can't see it.
Yeah.
You can see it at work. And also you can see the law of attraction at work.
Yeah.
And that's pretty interesting. Wow.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
the law
So
of attraction
powerful.
should be a college like course.
Yeah, it should. It
Or
should.
even younger. But I guess maturity wise, when you think about college and what you're learning and you're spending all this money to get higher education,
Yeah.
just a little bit more of the same you had in grade school and high school. It's not game changing in the sense where you're learning about the law of attraction, and you're learning about how to set really worthy goals. And you're not learning about how your mind works. And it's everything.
It is. It is everything. It is everything.
Yeah.
So we have been going on for a very long time. So let's try to wrap it up with a summary of what you think are the biggest lessons that you've learned in life.
Okay. Biggest lessons. People come and people go, and there's a reason for that. The people who are in your life, they're there for a reason. The people who have exited your life have left for a reason, and it has nothing to do with you. It's all about what you're putting out there and who you should be associating with. And it's it's a universe thing.
Yeah.
So a huge lesson I've learned is that nothing will come to you that's not meant for you. So if, right now the garbage people are getting my garbage, right? I knew that they were going to come today. And if they didn't, it would be fine because it wasn't meant to be. They'll come tomorrow. It's just about accepting what the universe is putting there and trusting it.
Yeah.
And knowing that you stopped dating that person, or you divorced this person, or your child got sick, like knowing that this was always the plan.
Yeah.
And what is meant for you will not pass you by.
Right.
And that to me is the hugest lesson I've learned, because I don't regret anything. Everything, all those paths that's my life plan that's been predestined for me.
Yeah.
Going through those horrible horrible death. Nothing I think of comes good out of that. Like, I hate when people say, oh, they're in a better place. Blah, blah, blah. But what it did lead me to was where I'm living now, happily with my family. My kids are around their cousins. My parents aren't far away. I'm surrounded in a neighborhood of beautiful humans. I pull into my driveway every day and smile. I love where I live.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And this was all, and I used to have dreams of living near my sister. My sister's my best friend. I had dreams of us, like I visualized us being old and in Miami, hanging out, retired. And because that's what I really truly thought was what was going to happen.
Yeah.
That was how I envisioned me getting to live near her again, was after retirement, certainly not at this age. I didn't think that was even going to be a part of my life story, but it took that huge event for the good came years later.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it might not happen at the time, but there is a silver lining in everything.
There is. And there's always a lesson. Yeah.
And believing that, and another life lesson I've learned is that we have a choice about what we think about. Who told you that?
Yeah.
Told you that if you have a negative thought, you shouldn't let it fester. You let it go and you replace it with something that makes you feel good.
That's right. Yeah.
And because we can't stop the 75,000 thoughts we have a day, we can't avoid the negative, but we can make choices about what we allow to stay.
Yeah, that's right. We can. We're in charge. You're in control of your mind.
Yeah.
I love it.
Gosh, I could go on and on about what I've learned.
Those are some very good ones.
I would say I've learned the most of my life in the past 3 years. The most powerful information, the lessons I'm learning. And I'm so excited to continue this studying because it really lights me up.
Yeah. It's exciting. Learning is exciting. And when you really tune into it and just trust the universe, tap into the inner self, it opens up unbelievable worlds. It's expansion on a level that you never knew before.
Totally.
So
And
cool.
my last lesson, because I think this is a super important one, especially for our young kids, is being your own. And Craig said it today, and I was like, I've said this so many times, is being your own best friend.
Oh yeah.
There's no shame in that game. We are the only people we are going to live with for the rest of our lives.
Yep.
Us. So
Yep.
why wouldn't we treat ourselves with the same compassion and love and empathy that we do for others?
That's right.
It doesn't make any sense. But
yeah,
it seems to me that the pattern has always been, if you do that, you're selfish. If you choose to do that, you're selfish. If you choose to go to the gym instead of be with your own children, you're selfish. Because I've heard that before.
yeah.
I've heard that's selfish.
But obviously, you have to be at a place in your own life where you can give more away to your family. If you just keep depleting yourself, you're not going to be able to give to the family.
But our society glamorizes that. And that to me is what we need to shift.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
What we need.
And I think more people feel that they have more awareness of the necessity to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Like putting your oxygen mask on first, that metaphor. So what about your blessings? What's your biggest blessing in life?
My family.
Yeah.
My kids, my husband.
Yeah.
My children are the light of my life, and I'm so proud of them. But yes, that's it for me. I love them so much. I cry when I think about it. I just think my kids are amazing.
Yeah.
I can't believe that I'm raising these two humans that are going to do great things in this world, and they're going to have good guidance because I'm doing the work for myself.
Yeah.
And without that, they might be different kids because I would be a different parent.
Yeah.
I would be like the frustrated parent, the overworked parent, the I can't bring you to the bus because I have to be at work at 8:05 parent. My presence has been a gift to them.
Yeah.
Because the older they get, we talked about this.
Yeah.
You think they need you less, but they really need you more.
They do. They still need you. They still need you.
Their needs, they can brush their own teeth and things like that, and all the things that they used to depend on us for, but they need us more. My presence just the past 2 years after I resigned, I see the difference in them.
Yeah. Yeah. You're giving them a gift.
I see it. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I am, because they are the way they are because of me and my husband. And it's more me because I'm the one that's with them more.
Yeah.
To no fault of his. He's holding down the fort right now.
Yes.
But I put in the work, and it wasn't just for me, it was for them.
Yes.
I want them to navigate their feelings. I want them to understand that what death is and how to mourn properly. These are things that 100% of us are going to go through.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is not part of our formal education. It is like mind blowing.
Yeah. There's so much that we should include in that educational system that we don't. You're right. All right. Final question. Answer if you can in one word. What's the most important thing?
Consistency.
Oh. I like it.
Everything.
I like it. Nice. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Renee. I am so honored that you've taken me through this story and that we can share it with others. It's just going to have such an impact, and everything you're doing is having a positive impact on the world and your little world and our greater world. And I'm so grateful for you and all that you're doing and your beautiful heart. Thank you again for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. And I just love you.
I love you too.